Hey guys, Ailoupup here. Today is my wrap up for February of 2020. I actually finished quite a few books this month, though most of them were fairly short, so that would probably be why. I finished a total of 5 and DNF'd 1. I don't usually DNF books, but I still wanted to talk about it because I did get halfway through, and I think I will talk about that one first. So the book I DNF'd was The Yard by Alia Eniath. I think that's how you pronounce her name, or close enough, I suppose. It follows a little girl named Maya who lives in Trinidad in a place referred to as the Yard. She lives there with her family, which includes not just her parents and her sisters, but also her aunts and uncles and cousins and her grandmother. When one of her aunts dies, her parents decide to take in the little boy that her aunt had been looking after. And at first, she seems to not like the boy, but over time, they begin to grow quite close. And it basically follows the relationship between Maya and the boy whose name is Beiruz. I won this a few years ago in a Goodreads giveaway and have been meaning to read this. And now that I tried, I don't feel like I picked it up at the right time. I don't consider myself a mood reader in any stretch of the imagination. However, when I was reading this, I had just made a physical TBR of all the books that I owned but hadn't read yet, or at least most of the books that I owned and hadn't read yet, and had put them in a particular order that I wanted to read them. And this is the book that made me decide I can't do that. I can't read them in a particular order because then I just feel trapped and I don't want to read. I ended up feeling this book was kind of boring and just not what I wanted to read through a time that was a little bit depressing for me. I'm probably going to end up putting this back on my TBR again at some point so that I can try again. However, I might just decide to get rid of it if I try it again and decide I just still don't like it. We will see. But for now, I ended up putting this book down at roughly about halfway. Now, the first book I actually finished was an audiobook called The Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name, which is the 4th book in the Outlander series. This book takes place in the America of the past. I was supposed to have finished this book in January, however, I ended up not being able to, just because I don't read or listen to, rather, audiobooks that fast, and on the last day of January, I ended up having probably about 8 hours or so left, and I could have finished it that day, but I ended up not really wanting to and ended up finishing it on February 1st instead. I've been listening to all of the books on audio, but this was the book that kind of made me realize that I really have to take a break in between books. It's not that I'm not enjoying it, because I am. It's more of the fact that I'm not used to listening to audio because most of the books I read are physical. And these books in particular are just such big books that sometimes it's a little hard to get through. While a frequent audiobook listener would probably finish these in a handful of days, these books lasted me a month or more. And I was honestly slowly becoming a little bored. And it's not that I don't like the narrator, because I actually do. And now that I've finished the 4th book, I honestly think that it was probably a good idea that I had read him via audio. There are sentences in Gaelic and other languages that just would have taken away from the story for me had I been reading them physically. And I am planning on going back and reading them in physical form, but at the moment, I'm just going to continue with the series via audio. I gave this book a 4 out of 5. The next book I read was Starlight by Erin Hunter. I've been reading these books for a while, trying to catch up on all that are out. And starting with this book, I am now up to things that I have never read before, which is actually a little exciting to me. I didn't think I would get this far. I really love this series, and I'm excited to continue it and see just how far it's gone. I don't know if I will manage to get them all read this year, since I don't have that many books myself, and I'll have to get the remainder. But I can get as far as I can this year, and then maybe next year I might be able to finish it. I gave this a 4 out of 5. The third book I read was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, which is the first book in the series of unfortunate events. I've been trying to read this series for a while. The last time I read it, I did manage to get quite far through the series, though I ended up never finishing them. I didn't grow up with the series, which I think for me is not probably a good thing, as I don't entirely enjoy them. They're okay, and I especially think they're really good books for children. It's just that for adults that maybe didn't grow up with this series, I don't know if it is the best. Although I can see the charm in it, and that is why, mostly, I gave this a 3 out of 5. The fourth book I read was The Magicians Nephew by C.S. Lewis, which is the prequel to the Narnia series, and is basically the creation of Narnia. This is another series that I've been trying to get through, and just have never been able to finish. I read a few when I was younger and enjoyed them, but now that I'm older and reading them again and actually trying to get through the series, they don't really resonate with me as much as they did when I was a kid. Or it could have just been this one. We'll see about the rest of the series when I get to them. I gave this a 3 out of 5. The last book I read was an ebook, and that was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which follows Fair. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. Fair or Farah or something along that sort, who is dragged into the magical land of Prithia after she kills a fairy. I've seen a lot of this particular series on BookTube, and one day I noticed that there was a deal on Amazon for the ebook, and I decided to get it, and I would get to it when I got to it. Well, I decided to get to it, and it was okay. A little bit happened, and then not much really happened once she got into Prithia for about half the book. She tries to escape a couple of times, and then once she is told that her family is okay, she stops trying to escape and just doesn't really pick up until about halfway through the book. Or a little over halfway. I think I'm interested enough in the characters to continue with the series, although I do hope that the second book is better written. And at this point in time, I'm probably not interested enough to get the physical books like I thought maybe I would if I enjoyed them enough. I don't think I enjoyed enough to get the physical books, but maybe if I finish the series or finish it up to what's out now, maybe I'll enjoy it enough that I might decide to get the series in physical form, or I might just stick with the ebooks. I don't know yet. I gave this a 3 out of 5. Those are all the books I read in the month of February. I had a fairly okay reading month, I think. 3 3-star reads and 2 4-star reads. Not great, but it's better than some other months that I've had. Let me know in the comments what you read in February, and I will see you next time. Bye!